I remember the exact moment I had to choose between freedom and death. The blizzard screamed through the pines like 1,000 wolves, ironic, since I was the only wolf for miles. Beth Crawford lay crumpled in the snow 20 feet ahead, her breath coming in shallow clouds that grew fainter with each second. Blood streaked the white powder where she'd fallen. Her ankle bent at an angle that made my stomach twist, but I could run. Every instinct bred into my bones over 5 years howled at me to turn around, to survive, to disappear into the storm where humans couldn't follow. 3 years I'd spent alone, running from the species that murdered my family. But those hands that now clutched uselessly at the snow, those same hands had pulled me from a steel trap when she could have left me to die. I took one step toward her, then another. The choice that would change everything. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. 3 months before that blizzard, I was just another shadow in the Rocky Mountains. Another ghost the humans whispered about, but never saw. I'd mastered the art of being invisible, hunting at dawn when the ranchers still slept, drinking from streams hidden deep in the pines, avoiding the trails where hikers left their scent and their noise. I'm what they call a melanistic wolf, black as midnight, which is fitting, since darkness became my only friend after the gunshots. My coat doesn't shimmer gray like my mother's did, or brown like my father's. It drinks in the light and gives nothing back, just like I learned to take from this world and give nothing in return. The scar across my left shoulder, cross-shaped like some cruel joke, reminds me every day of the night everything ended. I was 2 years old when the hunters came. The sound still lives in my bones, that crack of rifles splitting the night air. The yelps of my family cut short. The smell of gunpowder mixing with blood and pine sap. I ran. I'm not proud of it, but I ran while my mother's howl had died in her throat. For 3 years after, I survived on rabbits and rage. I watched humans from ridge lines, studied their patterns, learned their schedules. I knew which ranches had dogs that would alert to my scent, which farms left livestock unguarded at night. I never attacked their animals. I'm not stupid, but I knew I could if I wanted to. That knowledge felt like power. Then I started watching Elizabeth Crawford. I didn't mean to at first. Her cabin sat on the eastern edge of Pinewood, Colorado, where the forest meets civilization like two countries negotiating an uneasy peace. I had been tracking an elk herd that grazed near her property when I noticed her sitting by the lake. Just sitting for hours, staring at water like it held answers. She was 58, I'd later learn, though I had no concept of human years then. I only knew she moved with a weariness that had nothing to do with age. Her hair fell in waves of brown and silver. Her eyes, blue-gray like winter sky, looked at the world with the same exhaustion I felt in my bones. She lived alone. I understood alone. Some nights she sat on her porch until dawn, wrapped in a blanket, crying so quietly I almost couldn't hear it over the wind. Other nights, lights blazed in every window like she was fighting back the darkness itself. I should have moved on, should have found new hunting grounds away from human sorrow. But something about her kept me circling back, night after night, watching from the tree line. We were both waiting to die. I just didn't know it yet. The night everything changed started like any other hunt. Late October brought the first real cold, the kind that makes prey slow and careless. I'd learned the rhythms of survival: hunt when hungry, rest when full, trust nothing that walks on two legs. I'd been watching Beth's cabin from my usual spot behind the fallen cedar when I noticed something different. The way she moved inside, methodical, deliberate. She was organizing things with an intensity that made my hackles rise. Wolves know when something's ending. We can smell it in the air, taste it on the wind. She spent that evening carrying items out to her truck, then back inside, then out again, indecisive. Her hand shook as she arranged books on shelves, straightened photographs on the mantel. I didn't understand human rituals, but I recognized preparation, the kind animals make before dying. When she walked outside just after midnight, I nearly bolted. She rarely left the cabin after dark. But something in her posture, shoulders bent, like she carried stones, made me follow at a distance. She headed east toward the memorial stone I'd seen before, the one with the weathered plaque. She sank down in front of it, and the sound that came from her throat wasn't quite human. It was the keen of an animal in pain. I crept closer than I'd ever tried, drawn by something I couldn't name. From 30 feet away, hidden behind a boulder, I watched her rock back and forth. She talked to the stone, her voice breaking over words I didn't understand, but I understood grief. Loss speaks the same language across species. Then she turned her head, looked directly at me. I froze, every muscle locked. In 3 years, no human had seen me this close and lived to remember it because I'd made sure they never got this close. My mind screamed to run, but she didn't scream, didn't reach for a weapon. She just stared, and in the moonlight I saw her eyes were the same color as my mother's had been, that same exhausted gray blue. "I see you," she whispered, not angry, not afraid, just acknowledging. I should have run instead. I sat down. We stayed like that for what felt like hours but was probably minutes. Two broken creatures recognizing each other across an impossible divide. Then she stood slowly, wiped her face, and walked back to her cabin. She didn't look back, but she'd seen me, and I'd let her. The next night, I made the mistake that would save both our lives. I was hunting near the property line between forest and ranch land. The scent of fresh meat hung in the air. Deer, recently killed, still warm. My stomach overrode my caution. I approached through the brush, focused on the smell. Ignoring every warning sign, my instinct screamed. The trap's steel jaws closed around my right hind leg with a sound like bones breaking. The pain came a second later, so sharp and total that my vision went white. I heard my own howl tear through the night, the first sound I'd made in 3 years. That wasn't a whisper. The trap's teeth bit through fur and skin, grinding against bone. I thrashed, trying to pull free, but the chain held. The more I struggled, the deeper the metal cut. Blood pooled dark in the snow. My blood, too much of it. I stopped struggling, panting, understanding with perfect clarity this was how I'd die. Alone in a trap set by humans, just like my brother had died. The irony wasn't lost on me. The cold started seeping in, that bone-deep chill that comes before shock. I thought of my mother's face as she fell, my father's last snarl, the silence after the rifle stopped. Then I heard footsteps. My head snapped up. Through the darkness, a light bobbed closer. Human, the trap setter, coming to finish the job. I tried to snarl, but it came out as a whimper. Some predator I was. The light found me. I squinted against the glare, waiting for the rifle shot that would end it. Instead, I heard her voice. The woman from the memorial stone. Oh, God. Oh, no. Beth Crawford knelt in the snow 15 feet away, and I saw she wasn't carrying a gun, just a medical kit and a flashlight. Her face twisted with something I'd later recognize as the same pain I felt. She looked at me. I looked at her. Every instinct said bite when she gets close. Every memory said humans only bring death. But her eyes held that same exhaustion, that same readiness to surrender. I can help you, she said quietly, if you let me. I didn't believe her, but I was dying anyway. So when she moved closer, I didn't bite. That hesitation changed everything. Beth approached like she was gentling a spooked horse, slow movements, soft voice, eyes averted to seem less threatening. Every muscle in my body coiled tight, ready to lunge if she made one wrong move. The trap's teeth ground against bone with each breath I took. Blood loss made the world tilt and blur. Easy now, she murmured, kneeling just outside my striking range. I've done this before, long time ago. But muscle memory doesn't forget. She pulled off her wool scarf and wrapped it around her hands. The trap gleamed cruel in her flashlight beam, commercial-grade steel, the kind that could hold a full-grown wolf or snap a man's leg like kindling. She studied it with a professional eye that reminded me she wasn't just any human. She knew animals, knew pain. This is Rob's work, she said, and something hard entered her voice. I'd recognize his traps anywhere. Same man who... She cut herself off, shook her head. Doesn't matter now. What matters is getting you free. She reached for the trap mechanism. I snarled. Couldn't help it. The sound came from some primitive place deeper than thought. Beth froze. I know you're scared. So am I. Her voice cracked. But if I leave you here, you'll die. Slowly, painfully. And I've already let too many things die. Something in her tone cut through my panic. Not pity. Shared suffering. She gripped the trap's spring-loaded jaws. Her first attempt to pry them open failed. The mechanism stuck fast, rusted, and unforgiving. She tried again at throwing her weight into it. Nothing. Sweat beaded her forehead despite the cold. Come on, come on. She was crying now, tears freezing on her cheeks. Please, not again. I can't fail again. On her third attempt, she grabbed a fallen branch for leverage, wedged it against the trap's mechanism, and pushed with everything she had. The metal groaned, shifted. My leg screamed as the teeth loosened slightly. One more? She gasped. Just one more? The trap sprang open with a metallic shriek. I yanked my leg free and the world exploded into white-hot agony. I collapsed sideways, panting, unable to process anything except pain and blood and the overwhelming need to flee. I tried to stand. My leg buckled. Beth caught me before I hit the ground. Her strength shocked me. For someone who looked like she was made of grief and sleepless nights, she had hands like iron. She lowered me gently, then immediately stripped off her shirt sleeve and wrapped my leg with efficient movements. Compound fracture, maybe, she muttered, her veterinary training taking over. Deep laceration, definitely. Needs stitches and antibiotics or infection will kill you before the blood loss does. She sat back on her heels, staring at me. I stared back. We were both breathing hard, both covered in my blood, both understanding the impossible decision in front of us. "I should call Wildlife Services," she said. "That's protocol. They'd send someone, take you in, evaluate you." She paused. "Then they'd euthanize you. Wild wolf, injured, might be dangerous. Can't take the risk." The word euthanize meant nothing to me, but her tone said death. Or, she continued slowly, "I could take you home, patch you up myself, keep you hidden until you heal." She laughed, hollow and bitter. "Of course, that's completely insane. Against every regulation I ever learned. Could lose my license. If I still had one to lose, could get arrested, could get killed if you decide you'd rather eat me than trust me." And she looked toward her cabin, then back at me. In the flashlight's glow, I saw something shift in her face. A decision made or abandoned, I couldn't tell which. "I was planning to die tonight," she said quietly. "Did you know that I had everything ready? Pills counted, letters written, just one last walk to say goodbye to my husband's memorial." She touched the cross-shaped scar on my shoulder, and I flinched, but didn't bite. "Then I heard you howl, and something in my brain said, 'One more good thing? Do one more good thing before you go.'" Her fingers traced the scar pattern with strange recognition. "This mark. I've seen it before, but that's impossible." She shook her head, dismissing whatever thought had crossed her mind. Then she looked me dead in the eyes, and I saw the same reckless desperation I felt. "So, here's the deal. Wolf, I'll save you tonight, give you a week to heal, and in return, you give me a reason to stick around for that week instead of taking those pills." Her smile was sad and crooked. "We'll keep each other alive, just for a little while. Then we can both go back to dying, if that's what we want." Before I could process what was happening, she slid her arms under me, lifted, started carrying me toward her cabin like I weighed nothing. My vision swam, blood loss pulling me toward darkness. I should have fought, should have bitten, should have done anything except let this human take me into her den. But her heartbeat against my side was steady, alive, and I'd been so cold for so long. "Stay with me," she whispered as the world faded. "Just stay with me." So I did. When I woke, I was lying on blankets by a fire, and my enemy was stitching my wounds with gentle hands. Everything I'd believed about humans started cracking right then. The first 3 days, I refused everything: food, water, even the small mercy of sleep. I watched Beth Crawford move around her cabin with eyes that never closed, muscles tensed for the inevitable moment when she'd reveal her true nature, when the kindness would crack and the cruelty underneath would show its teeth. It never came. She placed raw venison near me each morning, good meat, fresh, not the scraps you'd throw a dog. When I didn't touch it, she'd simply remove it hours later without comment or frustration. She changed my bandages twice daily, her movements clinical and gentle, talking through each step like I could understand. "Going to clean the wound now. Might sting. I'm sorry." The apologies confused me most. Wolves don't apologize. We establish dominance or submit, fight or flee. This middle ground of courtesy felt like standing on ice that wouldn't bear weight, but wouldn't crack either. On the 4th morning, thirst overrode paranoia. I waited until she left the room, then dragged myself to the water bowl. The first sip tasted like surrender. When she returned and saw the empty bowl, her whole face transformed. She actually cried over water. "Thank God," she whispered. "I thought you'd just let yourself die." That's when I started paying attention to her patterns. Beth was a creature of painful routine. She woke before dawn, not because she wanted to, but because nightmares wouldn't let her sleep past 4. I heard her thrashing in the other room, calling out names. "Daniel, Grace, please." She'd shuffle to the kitchen, make coffee she rarely drank, stare at a photograph on the mantel, a man with kind eyes, and a woman who looked like a younger, happier version of Beth. Sometimes she'd talk to the photo. Sometimes she'd just stand there holding it like a shield against the darkness. The cabin told stories she didn't speak aloud. Medical textbooks lined the shelves, their spines cracked from use. Framed certificates on the wall. Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, Wildlife Rehabilitation Specialist, Conservation Service Merit Award. But everything was dated 6 years ago or older, like she'd stopped being a person after some invisible line was crossed. A phone sat on the counter, screen dark. It rang constantly. She never answered, once. I watched her stare at the name Grace flashing on the screen, her hand hovering over it, shaking. The call went to voicemail. Beth's shoulders collapsed inward like a building, giving up on staying standing. The pills sat in a kitchen drawer. She opened every night around midnight. She'd take out the bottle, count them always the same number, meaning she never took any, then put them back. This ritual had the feel of something rehearsed, a dance she'd practiced for so long it became comfort. "Just checking they're still there," she told me once, though I gave no sign of understanding. "In case I need them, in case it gets too hard." By day 5, I ate the venison, not because I'd stopped being afraid, but because my body's need for survival overrode my mind's need for pride. Beth cried again. I was learning this about her. She cried easily, but never hysterically. Quiet tears that rolled down her face like rain on windows. "You're going to make it," she said. And I realized she wasn't just talking to me. The wound healed faster than she expected. "Good genetics," she muttered, changing bandages that showed pink, healthy tissue instead of angry red infection. The cross-shaped scar on my shoulder fascinated her. She'd trace it sometimes while working, her brow furrowed like she was solving a puzzle with missing pieces. On day 7, she pulled out an old file folder, medical records, photographs, dates that meant nothing to me. But her hands trembled as she laid out a photo of a gray wolf with the same distinctive cross scar on its shoulder. 6 years ago, she said, more to herself than me. Pregnant female. Someone poisoned her antifreeze mixed with meat. Ranchers do that sometimes when they want wolves gone but don't want to use guns. Her voice went hollow. By the time I got to her, the toxins had destroyed her kidneys. I tried everything. Induced vomiting, activated charcoals, IV fluids. Nothing worked. She touched the photo. Then my scar. She died in my arms, but she'd already given birth weeks before. 4 pups. The tracker data suggested. I always wondered if they had survived. Beth looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "You're about the right age. The right coloring melanistic wolves are rare, but not impossible. And this scar." She shook her head. "But that would be impossible. Would mean one of those pups survived, grew up wild, and ended up in a trap less than 5 miles from where his mother died. She filed the papers away. The world doesn't work like that. Doesn't give you chances to fix what you broke. But something had shifted in how she looked at me, like I'd gone from generic wild animal to someone specific, someone owed a debt. Week 2 brought new challenges. I could walk now, limping but mobile. The cabin's walls started feeling less like shelter and more like cage. I'd pace the perimeter, testing doors, windows, looking for exits. Beth never locked anything. "You can leave any time," she said, watching me sniff at the front door. "I won't stop you, but your leg isn't strong enough yet. Another week, maybe 2, and you'll be ready." I didn't trust her promises, but I also didn't trust my leg. Compromise felt like weakness, so I stayed, hating every moment. I chose captivity over freedom, not understanding why I kept choosing it. Beth filled the silence with stories. She'd sit in her armchair with books she never read and just talk about her husband, Daniel, who'd been a wildlife rescue pilot, about the day he crashed trying to save a bear cub during a storm. "I'm the one who encouraged him to take that job," she said. "Told him he'd be perfect for it, that he could save so many animals." Her laugh was sharp enough to draw blood. I was right. He saved hundreds. It just killed him in the process. She talked about her daughter, Grace, a lawyer in Boston who hadn't spoken to her in 6 years. Grace was 12 when her father died. She heard me tell Daniel it was safe to fly that day. Heard me say the weather would hold. Beth's voice cracked. "It didn't. And she's never forgiven me. I don't blame her. I haven't forgiven me either." I understood that guilt. Hadn't I run while my family died? Hadn't I survived when survival meant cowardice? The phone rang. Grace again. Beth let it go to voicemail. This time, the message played on speaker. She must have forgotten to silence it. "Mom, please pick up." The voice was young, female, desperate. "I know you're there. I need to talk to you. It's important. Please." Beth stared at the phone like it was a snake. Her hand reached out, pulled back, reached out again. The call ended. Beth put her head in her hands. "I can't," she whispered. "What would I even say? Sorry I killed your father. Sorry I'm such a terrible mother I couldn't keep our family together." She looked at me with eyes that begged for answers I couldn't give. How do you apologize for ruining someone's entire life? I thought about my alpha brother, the one who'd driven me from the pack 2 years before the hunters came. I'd tried to stop him from killing a wounded deer. Some instinct said the deer was suffering too much, that we should let it die in peace rather than prolong its agony. My brother had seen that mercy as weakness, too soft, too human. He'd snarled, like it was the worst insult imaginable. He'd driven me out, and I'd been alone when the hunters came. If I'd been with the pack, I'd have died with them. My mercy had saved me. His strength had killed him. Maybe humans weren't so different after all. Week 3 brought the first real danger. A truck pulled up to the cabin. I heard it before Beth did. My ears catching the rumble of an engine cutting through morning silence. I scrambled to the bedroom while Beth smoothed her hair and opened the door. "Rob!" Her voice went cold. "What do you want?" I couldn't see him, but I could smell him through the crack in the bedroom door. Gunpowder, blood, old sweat, rage cooked down to bitter concentrate, and underneath it all, a grief so profound it made the air taste like metal. Haven't seen you at the store in a while. His voice was gravel and sandpaper. Wanted to make sure you were all right. Since when do you care if I'm all right? Since always. Beth, you know that. A long silence. When Beth spoke again, her tone had softened slightly. How are you, Rob? Really? Same as always. Getting by. Pause. Lost a trap up near Pine Ridge. Expensive one. Spring was triggered, but no wolf. Just blood and tracks leading somewhere. Wolves are clever. This one's cleverer than most. Black wolf, big one. Been tracking it for months. It's the same one that's been spooking the Hendersons' cattle. His voice hardened. Needs to be dealt with before it causes real trouble. From my hiding spot, I could feel Beth's body tense even through the wall. Rob, you can't keep doing this. The wolves aren't your enemy. The hell they're not. The rage in his voice made me flatten my ears. They took everything from me. Beth, everything. Emma's death wasn't... Don't! The word cracked like a whip. Don't say her name. You don't get to say her name. Another silence, heavier than the first. I'm sorry, Beth said quietly. I know you're hurting, but killing wolves won't bring her back. Maybe not, but it's all I've got left. I heard his boots on the porch steps, then stop. You'd tell me if you saw that wolf. Wouldn't you? Black cross-shaped scar on its shoulder. My blood turned to ice. Why would I see it? Beth's voice stayed steady. Impressive, because wounded animals go to ground, and you've always had a soft spot for wounded things. His footsteps resumed, then paused again. Be careful, Beth. That wolf's dangerous. Don't let your guilt make you do something stupid. The truck pulled away. Beth stood at the door for a long time after. When she finally turned around, her face was bone white. He knows, she said, or suspects. We're running out of time. That night, she opened the pill drawer and stared at the bottle for twice as long as usual. I watched from the doorway, not understanding the math, but understanding the exhaustion. She was calculating whether saving me was worth the cost. Finally, she closed the drawer, looked at me. One more week. I'll give us both one more week. But on day 21, I made the choice for her. My leg had healed enough. The limp was barely noticeable. I could hunt, fight, run. Staying was now choice, not necessity. And choice felt too dangerous for both of us. Beth had fallen asleep in her chair, a book open on her lap. I watched her for a long time, this strange human who'd saved me for reasons I'd never fully understand. Her face in sleep looked younger, less haunted. Like maybe she was dreaming of a time before everything broke, and I nudged the front door open. It swung silently on hinges she'd oiled without my noticing. The night air hit my face like cold water, waking parts of me that had gone dormant. Forest smells, freedom, home. I looked back once. Beth hadn't moved. On the kitchen counter, the pill bottle sat like a promise or a threat. I thought about staying until morning, saying goodbye somehow. But wolves don't say goodbye. We just go. I stepped into the darkness and ran, not fleeing this time, choosing. There's a difference. The forest welcomed me back with familiar sounds and smells. I found my old den, curled up in the space that remembered my shape. This was right. This was where I belonged. So why did the cabin's warmth still cling to my fur like a ghost. Why did I keep thinking about Beth's face when she discovered I'd gone? Why did freedom suddenly feel like the loneliest word I'd ever learned? The forest felt wrong. Not the forest itself. The pines still stood where they'd always stood. The stream still ran cold and clear. Prey still moved through the underbrush in predictable patterns. But something fundamental had shifted in me, and the wilderness that had been my whole world for 3 years now felt like a coat that didn't quite fit anymore. I hunted, caught a rabbit on my second day back, a young doe on the fifth. My leg held strong, barely even aching. Beth had done good work. I should have felt triumphant, reclaiming my territory, proving I didn't need anyone. Instead, I kept circling back toward her cabin, not close enough to be seen. I'd learned stealth young, and heartbreak hadn't made me stupid, but close enough to catch glimpses through the trees, to verify she still moved inside those walls, that she hadn't opened that pill drawer and made a choice I couldn't reverse. On the fourth night back, I watched her discover I'd left. She'd come home from somewhere. I smelled town on her clothes, anxiety in her sweat, and found the front door ajar. The way she called my name, voice breaking over syllables I still didn't understand, made something twist in my chest. She searched the property, the forest edge, called until her voice went hoarse. Then she sat on the porch steps and put her face in her hands. Not crying, something worse than crying, just sitting there like she'd finally run out of reasons to stand up. After an hour, she went inside. The cabin lights blazed all night. Through the window, I watched her move from room to room, touching the blankets I'd slept on, the water bowl I'd used, gathering evidence that I'd existed, that she hadn't imagined the whole thing. The next morning, the patterns I'd observed for 3 weeks unraveled. She stopped making coffee, stopped eating the meals she'd forced herself to prepare. The phone rang constantly, that Grace number, and for the first time, Beth didn't even look at it. The pills came out of the drawer, stayed on the kitchen counter, counting distance instead of storing it away. I'd done this. My leaving had pushed her back to the edge I'd unknowingly pulled her from. The realization sat in my gut like bad meat. But what could I do? I was a wolf. She was human. We'd bought each other time, honored our deal, 1 week of mutual survival. The debt was paid. Going back would only delay the inevitable. Except I kept watching, kept circling, kept counting the pills was on her counter from too far away to actually see them, but knowing anyway that they were there. On day 6, a car arrived at Beth's cabin. Small setting, out-of-state plates. A woman got out late 20s, dark hair, Beth's eyes. She stood at the car for 5 full minutes before approaching the door. Her hand raised to knock, fell, raised again. She never knocked, just got back in the car and left, but not far. I tracked her to the edge of town, watched her park outside a small church. An old man emerged, 70s, weathered face, gentle movements. They talked for a long time. The woman cried. The old man listened with the patience of someone who'd heard countless confessions. Grace had to be the daughter who hadn't spoken to Beth in 6 years. And she'd been right there, steps from reconciliation, but couldn't bridge the final distance. Humans, I was learning, were better than wolves at building walls around their own hearts. On day 7, Rob McAllister returned. I was hunting near Beth's property line when his truck pulled up. Watching him move around the perimeter with his flashlight, I understood with perfect clarity he was hunting me. The way he examined tracks, the methodical search pattern, The rifle slung across his back, this wasn't casual checking. This was predator seeking predator. He found what he was looking for, my tracks in the soft earth, leading from the forest toward the cabin and away again. Black fur caught on the fence wire where I had squeezed through. He bagged it like evidence. Beth came outside. "What are you doing on my property?" "Rob, these are wolf tracks. Fresh. Big one." He held up the fur sample. "Black wolf, just like I said. Been here recently. Multiple times." His eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?" "Could be coyote." "Beth, I've been tracking animals since before you got your veterinary license. These are wolf tracks, leading right to your door." He stepped closer. "What did you do?" "I don't know what you're talking about. That wolf from my trap, the one that escaped, you took it, didn't you? Brought it here, healed it, kept it hidden." His voice rose. "Do you have any idea how illegal that is, how dangerous? Even if I did, which I'm not saying I did, it's gone now. Has been for a week. You can search the whole property if you want." Rob did. Spent an hour going through her cabin, her shed, her small barn. Found nothing because there was nothing to find. But his face when he came back outside told me he wasn't done. "I'm setting up the trail cameras," he said, "on the property line. Legal, since it's technically public land, if that wolf comes back when it comes back. Because they always come back to easy food sources, I'll know, and I'll deal with it. Rob, please, my daughter died because of wolves. Beth." His voice cracked like ice. "She was 16 years old. 16. She jumped into Miller's Lake during a nightmare about the attack. They found her 3 days later with rocks in her pockets." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. "Linda blamed me," Rob continued, quieter now. "Said I should have killed those wolves after the first attack, that I was weak, that Emma died because I showed mercy." He met Beth's eyes. She was right. Mercy got my daughter killed. I won't make that mistake again. He left. Beth stood in the yard long after his truck disappeared, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding broken pieces together. That night, I watched her sit at the kitchen table with those pills. Really looked at them this time, rolling the bottle between her hands. The old man from the church appeared let himself in without knocking, the way old friends do. "Beth," his voice was warm, gravel. "Grace came to see me. She's worried about you. She should be. I'm about as reliable as a three-legged chair. She's pregnant, 3 months. Wants to tell you but doesn't know how." Beth's head snapped up. "Pregnant? Grace is pregnant. Gonna be a grandmother to... If you stick around long enough to meet the baby." The old man, Pastor Bill, I'd learn later, sat across from her. "That wolf you've been hiding. Grace saw it leave. Saw you fall apart after Becky." "I wasn't hiding. Beth, I've known you since you were Grace's age. Don't lie to a pastor. We can smell it better than your wolf could." Beth's laugh was more sob. "His name was Midnight. I named him Midnight because of his fur and because he only came out after dark, like he was ashamed of existing in daylight." She wiped her eyes. "He was the son of the wolf I let die 6 years ago. I'm almost sure of it. Same scar, same age, found in almost the exact same spot, like God was giving me a second chance. And you took it. And he left anyway, just like Grace left, just like Daniel left. Everyone leaves. Bill, maybe I'm just not worth staying for. Or maybe, Bill said gently, you taught that wolf something you haven't learned yourself yet. That sometimes leaving is how you prove love. That sometimes the bravest thing is letting go. After Bill left, Beth put the pills back in the drawer. Didn't throw them away, I noticed that, but didn't count them either. Just closed the drawer, like closing a book she wasn't ready to finish. Then she did something I'd never seen. She picked up the phone, dialed, waited. Grace, it's Mom. I know you came by. I'm sorry I wasn't. I'm sorry for everything. Call me back, please. I have things I need to tell you, things I should have said 6 years ago. She hung up, sat in the dark, waiting for a call that didn't come that night. But she was waiting. That was something. From the tree line. I watched her finally go to bed. Watched the lights go out. Watched the cabin settle into the quiet breathing of structure and solitude. I should have left then. Should have gone deep into the mountains where humans couldn't follow and wolves could forget they'd ever known warmth. Instead, I circled closer, lay down in the spot behind the barn where I used to watch her, close enough to smell wood smoke from her chimney, close enough to hear if she called out in nightmares, close enough to run if she needed me, even though I told myself I wouldn't. Even though I knew getting involved again would only lead to more heartbreak. Wolves mate for life, people say. We bond with our pack, and those bonds don't break. I'd never had a mate, never had a pack that wanted me, but lying there in the cold, listening to Beth's cabin breathe, I started to understand what those bonds might feel like. And why they terrified me more than any trap ever could. The blizzard came 3 days later with the kind of viciousness that makes old-timers talk about the winter of '78 or whatever year haunts their memories. Weather reports called it an unprecedented November storm system. I called it teeth and claws made of wind and ice. Nature reminding us we were all just meat trying not to freeze. I'd moved to a den 2 miles north, far enough from Beth's cabin to call it separation. Close enough that I still knew she was there. Stupid compromise. Wolves don't do compromises. We commit or we flee. The storm hit at dusk, temperature plummeting 20 degrees in an hour. I'd weathered worse. Dug into my den with cached food and the bone-deep knowledge that survival meant staying still. Wind howled through the pines like the voices of every wolf I'd lost, and I curled tighter, conserving heat. Then I smelled her. Not close. The wind carried scent erratically in blizzard conditions, but unmistakably Beth. Sweat, fear blood, wrong direction from her cabin. Moving when any creature with sense would shelter. Every logical instinct said, stay put. Hunting me was Rob's trap, not hers. She'd made her choices. I'd made mine. We didn't owe each other anything beyond what we'd already paid, but her scent carried something else. Desperation. The kind that comes right before giving up. I was running before I consciously decided to move. The storm tried to kill me 3 times in the first mile. Visibility dropped to nothing, just white void in every direction. Wind strong enough to knock me sideways, so complete it froze the moisture in my nose. I navigated by smell alone, following that blood-fear Beth scent that grew stronger with each 100 yards. My leg, healed but not forgotten, started screaming around mile 2. Old injury protesting new demands. I ignored it. Pain was just information. Information I didn't have time to process. I found her collapsed at the base of a ravine. half buried in accumulating snow. Even from 30 feet up, I could see the wrong angle of her left ankle, see the shallow rise and fall of her chest, see the way her lips had gone blue. Getting down the ravine nearly killed me. The slope was ice-slicked rock, no good purchase. Gravity trying to dash me against boulders. I fell twice. Landed hard both times. Tasted blood in my mouth. Kept going, up close. She was worse than I'd thought. Hypothermia's early stages shivering stopped, skin pale as death, breathing slow and irregular. Her ankle jutted at an angle that made my stomach turn. But it was her eyes that gutted me when they fluttered open. Recognition, then resignation. "You came back," she whispered, words slurred by cold. Don't know why. I wouldn't have. I tried to nudge her upright. She was dead weight, consciousness flickering like a candle in wind. Her phone lay smashed on the rock she'd fallen from above. I realized, following something or running from something. "Rob called," she mumbled, delirious. "Said he found injured wolf near Pine Creek. I thought maybe you—" She coughed, and it sounded wet. Stupid, so stupid, but I had to check. Understanding hit like physical blow. Rob had lied, used me as bait, led her into the storm deliberately, to kill her, to punish her for saving me. For showing mercy, Rob no longer believed in. The rage that filled me was white-hot and useless. Rob wasn't here. Beth was dying in front of me. Rage solved nothing. I grabbed her coat collar in my teeth. Started pulling. She was heavier than physics should allow. Every pound fighting me. The snow worked against traction, my paws sliding with each step. My legs screamed bloody murder. Didn't matter. Inch by inch, foot by foot, I dragged her toward where memory insisted her cabin waited. Time stopped meaning anything. Just pull, rest, pull, rest. Beth's breathing getting shallower, my jaw aching, then numb, then just part of the background noise of suffering. The storm laughing at both of us. Two creatures too stupid to know when they were beaten. I fell 4 times, got up 3. The 4th time, I lay in the snow for what felt like hours, certain I couldn't move again. Beth wasn't moving at all anymore. Maybe she was already dead. Maybe this was pointless. I thought about my mother, dying in Beth's arms 6 years ago. About Beth carrying guilt like stones. About second chances that shouldn't exist but somehow did. I got up. Cabin lights appeared through the storm like hallucination. But they held steady, grew closer, real, achievable. I used the last of my strength to drag Beth onto the porch, then collapsed beside her. My howl was barely sound, just air and desperation. "Please, somebody, help!" Footsteps running, voices shouting, lights blinding. Rob's face appeared above me, then Grace's, both of them, together, finding us dying on Beth's porch. Rob reached for his rifle. Grace slapped it out of his hands. "That wolf just saved my mother's life, you son of a bitch!" Then everything went black. I woke to the smell of antiseptic and human voices arguing in sharp whispers. My eyes stayed closed while I assessed damage, standard survival protocol. Body temperature low but rising, leg agony, jaw couldn't open fully, ribs at least 2 cracked from the falls. But alive, breathing, heart still pumping. The voices resolved into words. "Can't just euthanize him. Mom's not even conscious to—" "It's protocol. Miss Crawford, wild wolf, severe injuries, history of human contact." The humane thing sung. Humane. That wolf dragged my mother 2 miles through a blizzard. When did you last do anything that selfless? I recognized Grace's voice from the phone messages. The other voice was male, clinical, with the inflectionless tone of someone who'd learned to discuss death like weather. Wildlife Services has regulations. I don't make them. I just then break them. Just this once. Please. A third voice, rougher. Rob, the wolf, stays alive. Silence. Then the clinical voice. Mr. McAllister, you filed 3 complaints about this animal last month. You told me it was dangerous. Needed to be destroyed immediately. Now, you're defending it? Yeah, I'm defending it. Rob's voice carried something I hadn't heard before. Shame. Because I'm the dangerous one. I led Beth out there, lied about finding an injured wolf to bait her into the storm. I tried to kill her. Rob, Grace started. No, let me finish. I spent 2 years blaming wolves for my daughter's death. 2 years hunting them like it would bring Emma back. But that wolf, I felt him gesture toward me. He did what I couldn't. He showed up when someone needed him. He chose mercy when I chose revenge. His voice broke. Emma would have loved that wolf. She would have hated what I became. The clinical voice, Dr. Webb, I'd learned, cleared his throat uncomfortably. Be that as it may, the law is clear. Miss Crawford broke multiple statutes by harboring a wild animal. If she recovers, she could face charges. The wolf needs to be evaluated by our behavioral specialists, and given the severity of his injuries. Euthanasia is the most... Then evaluate him, Pastor Bill's voice, steady as bedrock, but do it after he heals, after Beth wakes up, after we have time to figure out what actually happened here. Pastor, I respect your position in the community, but Dr. Webb, Bill's tone hardened. I've been in Pinewood 40 years, married your parents, baptized you. Don't make me remind everyone that you got your job through connections, not merit. And those connections can be unconnected real quick. A long pause. Fine. 72 hours. But he stays sedated and under observation. And if Mrs. Crawford doesn't wake up, or if she wakes up and wants nothing to do with this animal, we proceed with euthanasia. I heard footsteps leave, a door close, then Grace's voice, thick with tears. How is she? Severe hypothermia, broken ankle, pneumonia setting in. Bill sighed. But she'll survive, physically. Anyway, emotionally is another question. I should have knocked. When I was here last week, I should have just knocked on the damn door. Can't change the past, child. Only the future. I'm pregnant, Pastor Bill, 3 months. I came to tell her that, to ask her. I don't know how to be a mother when mine couldn't stand to look at me. Beth looks at you. She's always looked at you. You're the one who turned away. Because she killed my father? No. Grace, a storm killed your father. Bad luck and worse timing killed your partner. Your mother made a weather call based on the information she had. She was wrong. But being wrong isn't murder. Silence. Then quiet sobbing. Over the next 3 days, I drifted between consciousness and something deeper, heard fragments of conversations, machines beeping, Beth's voice calling my name in fever dreams. The world existed in pieces, puzzle fragments I was too tired to assemble. On day 2, I heard Rob return, talking to Beth's unconscious body with the desperation of confession. I wanted you dead. Beth wanted to punish you for having compassion I'd lost. Emma used to have that same compassion. Before the wolves came, long pause. No, before I taught her to be afraid. That's the truth, isn't it? She was 8 when the attack happened. Scared, sure. But kids bounce back. I'm the one who couldn't let it go, who showed her my nightmares until they became hers. I heard him move closer to wherever they were keeping me. This wolf, I saved him once, 6 years ago. Emma was with me when I found him in a trap, different time. Just a pup, scared out of his mind. Emma begged me to free him, said, "Daddy, please, he's just a baby." So I did, let him go. Emma talked about that wolf for months, the midnight wolf. She called him. Rob's voice thickened. Then 2 years later, she saw wolves attack the sheep, and I spent every day after reminding her how dangerous they were, how they couldn't be trusted, how they'd killed before and would kill again. He was crying now. I took her one good memory and poisoned it with fear, and when she died, I blamed the wolves, easier than blaming myself. The room went quiet, except for machines breathing for both Beth and me. I don't know if you can hear me, Wolf, but if you can, I'm sorry. For the trap, for the lie, eyes, for teaching my daughter that mercy was weakness. He paused. You proved me wrong. Thank you for that. On day 3, Beth woke. I heard Grace's cry of relief, the rush of medical staff, the chaos of monitoring and assessing. Then, through it all, Beth's voice, raspy but clear. Where's Midnight? Mom, he's alive. Barely, but alive. I need to see him. You can't move yet. Your ankle. Then bring him to me. They did. Wheeled my gurney into Beth's room, both of us wrecked and patched with tubes and bandages. Her eyes found mine across the space. We looked at each other like survivors of shipwreck, amazed the other had made sure. You came back, she whispered. I couldn't respond. Sedation kept my body heavy, uncooperative. But my tail moved once, slight, unmistakable. Beth laughed, and it turned into crying. You stubborn, beautiful idiot. You should have left me there. Grace stood at her mother's bedside, one hand on Beth's shoulder, the other, unconsciously, resting on her stomach. He saved you, Mom, just like you saved him. We saved each other. Beth's eyes never left mine. That's what Pack does. Dr. Webb cleared his throat. Mrs. Crawford, we need to discuss the wolf's future. There'll be a hearing in 4 days. The town will vote on what happens to him. I need to know, do you want to fight for him? Because if you do, it's going to be ugly. Beth reached toward me, fingers stretching across the impossible distance between our gurneys. Yes, she said, I'll fight. And I realized, lying there, broken and drugged, that I'd fight too. For her, for us, for whatever this thing between human and wolf had become, even if it killed us both. The town hall hearing happened on a Tuesday, because apparently that's when humans decide whether creatures live or die. Between court dates and church socials, they transported me in a reinforced cage protocol, Webb said, though I was too weak to threaten a house cat. Beth arrived in a wheelchair, ankle wrapped to her knee, face still pale from pneumonia. Grace pushed her mother's chair with a fierce protectiveness I recognized from my own mother back when I'd had one. The community center smelled like old coffee and judgment, every seat filled, people standing against walls. I counted maybe 200 faces and read in their expressions the entire spectrum of human opinion on whether I deserved to keep breathing. Webb called the hearing to order, explained the situation with clinical precision. Wild wolf, illegal human contact, severe injuries sustained in an incident. He danced around Rob's involvement, but everyone in that room knew small towns don't keep secrets. The question before us, Webb said, is what to do with this animal. Our options are immediate euthanasia, relocation to a distant territory, or GPS monitoring with limited local release. A rancher stood immediately, John Bridger, weathered face and calloused hands. I've lost 15 sheep to wolves this year. 15. That's $5,000 I'm never getting back. Every wolf we let live is money out of hard-working families' pockets. A woman near the front, Karen Walsh, mother of 3, nodded vigorously. My kids play in those woods. I can't sleep knowing predators are out there. What if next time it's not livestock? What if it's a child? The murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. I watched Beth's face tighten, saw Grace's hand grip her mother's shoulder. Pastor Bill stood, and the room quieted. Old-timers commanded that kind of respect. John's right about the financial loss, Bill said. But let's put some numbers in perspective. The Colorado Wildlife Commission reports 2 wolf attacks on humans in the last 20 years. 2. You know how many people die from bee stings annually? 63. From deer vehicle collisions, 200. From domestic dogs, 35. He paused. We're afraid of the wrong things. That's statistics, Karen shot back. Statistics don't raise my kids. No, it does. But fear does. And we need to ask ourselves, what are we teaching them? That the world is so dangerous, we have to destroy everything that scares us. A younger man stood one of Bridger's ranch hands. Easy to talk philosophy when you're not losing money. Some of us work for a living. Bill's expression hardened. I was a wolf hunter for 40 years, killed 47 of them. Thought I was protecting people. His voice dropped. Every night I see their eyes. Every night I wonder what I protected, except my own fear. The room went silent. Grace stood next, helping her mother up despite Beth's protests. Beth wobbled on crutches, but stayed upright. I'm Elizabeth Crawford. Most of you know me, or knew me before. She faltered, teared, then pushed forward. 6 years ago, I failed to save a wolf. She'd been poisoned antifreeze mixed with meat. Classic rancher method when you want them gone but don't want to use guns. She was pregnant, died in my arms. Beth's voice cracked. I've carried that guilt every day since. Wondered if her pups survived, wondered if I could have done more. She looked directly at me. This wolf, Midnight, is her son. DNA evidence confirms it. The pup that survived grew up, lived here, avoided humans, until Rob's trap caught him in almost the exact spot his mother died. Someone in the crowd muttered, That's impossible. I thought so too, Beth said. But life doesn't care what we think is impossible. It just happens. She turned to face the room. Midnight could have let me die in that blizzard. He was free, healed. He owed me nothing. But he came back, dragged me 2 miles through conditions that nearly killed him. Animals don't have morality, a voice called out. It was probably just looking for food. Then explain, Grace interjected. Why he dragged her toward her cabin instead of toward easier prey. Why he stayed with her after, barely conscious, when he could have eaten and run. She stepped forward. I'm Grace Crawford. I haven't spoken to my mother in 6 years because I blamed her for my father's death. But watching that wolf risk everything to save her taught me something I was too stubborn to learn. Love isn't about blame. It's about showing up. The room shifted, felt it in the air, opinions wavering, certainties cracking. Then Rob stood. The silence that fell was absolute. Everyone knew his story, his daughter, his rage, his traps. My name is Robert McAllister. His voice was steady, but his hands shook. 2 years ago, wolves killed my daughter. Gasps, murmurs, people turning to neighbors, confirming what they'd heard. No, Rob corrected himself. That's what I told myself. Truth is, wolves attacked our sheep. My daughter Emma witnessed it at 8 years old. Got scared naturally. Any kid would, but she would have been fine if I hadn't spent the next 8 years teaching her that fear, feeding it, making her nightmares about wolves because they were easier to hate than my own helplessness. His voice broke. Emma jumped into Miller's Lake at 16. They found her with rocks in her pockets. And I blamed wolves. Easier than blaming myself for failing to help her heal. He looked directly at me. I set the trap that caught Midnight. And I lied to Beth Crawford, led her into that storm, hoping she'd die. Because she showed mercy I'd forgotten existed. And it made me feel like the monster I'd become. Someone, I think it was Karen, whispered, "Oh, Rob, that wolf should have let her die. He was free, but he came back." Rob's tears fell openly now. He did what I couldn't. He chose compassion over survival. Emma would have loved that. She would have loved him. He turned to the crowd. If you want to put something down because it's dangerous, put me down. I'm the one who tried to kill someone. Midnight's the one who saved her. The silence was so complete I could hear wind outside. Wood creaking, my own heart. Webb stood, looking uncomfortable. Mr. McAllister's confession is noted, but before we vote, there's one more piece of evidence. He held up a manila folder. DNA analysis from Midnight's medical records, cross-referenced with historical samples. He opened the folder, though I suspect he'd memorized what it said. Midnight is indeed the offspring of the wolf. Mrs. Peace Crawford attempted to save 6 years ago. Probability, furthermore, our tracking records show that 6 years ago, Mr. McAllister filed a report of releasing a wolf pup from a trap on his property. Location matches, time frame matches. Rob's head snapped up. That was... Emma was with me. She begged me to free it. You saved his life once, Webb said quietly. He returned the favor. Someone in the back started crying, then someone else. The emotion spread through the room like fever. A teacher stood, Mrs. Henderson, 80 if she was a day. I've lived through depression and 2 wars. If there's one thing I learned, it's that love doesn't care about logic or species. That wolf and Beth saved each other. If we kill him now, we're saying that love is worth less than our fear. I won't vote for that. Bridger stood again. I still lost 15 sheep, and I'll cover it, Rob said immediately. Every sheep lost to wolves in this county this year, I'll pay. I've got the money. Emma's life insurance was saving it for, hell, I don't know, revenge fund. Let me use it for something she'd actually approve of. Bridger sat down slowly. That's $15,000. Then consider it paid. Webb banged his gavel. We'll vote. 3 options: euthanasia, distant relocation, or GPS monitoring with local release. He paused. Show of hands. Euthanasia. 12 hands, mostly ranchers. A few scared parents. Relocation. 45 hands. The compromise crowd, wanting me gone but not dead. GPS monitoring with local release. The rest of the room, I couldn't count them all, but it was overwhelming. Pastor Bill, Mrs. Henderson, Grace, Rob, even some ranchers, swayed by the promise of compensation and the story's impossible weight. Beth sobbed into her hands. Grace wrapped arms around her mother, both of them shaking. Webb looked at the results with something like wonder. Motion carries. Midnight will be fitted with a GPS tracking collar and released into the wilderness under strict monitoring. Any livestock attacks will result in immediate reconsideration. He looked at me through the cage bars. Don't make me regret this. I couldn't respond, but I met his eyes and held him until he looked away first. After the crowd dispersed, some angry, most crying, all changed. Beth's wheelchair was rolled to my cage. She pressed her palm against the bars. I pressed my nose to her fingers, the metal cold between us. You're free, she whispered. You can go back to the wild. Live how you're meant to live. Grace knelt beside her mother. Mom, I need to tell you something. I'm pregnant. 3 months. Beth's head whipped toward her daughter so fast I thought she'd hurt herself. Pregnant Grace, that's... I came to tell you last week. Stood outside your cabin for 20 minutes. Couldn't knock because I was too angry and too scared and too much of a coward. Grace's voice broke. But then I saw you almost die, and I realized I don't want my daughter growing up without knowing her grandmother. I don't want her to inherit our silence. They held each other and cried, years of pain flooding out in one release. Rob approached cautiously. Beth, I'm turning myself in. Attempted negligent homicide. But before they take me, I needed to say I'm sorry for Emma, for the lies, for forgetting what your husband taught me about mercy. Beth reached out, took his hand. Daniel forgave everyone, even the storm. I should have learned that sooner. I watched these humans piece themselves back together, stitch by messy stitch, watched them choose forgiveness over revenge, hope over despair, and understood this is what pack means. Not blood, not territory, just showing up when someone needs you, especially when it costs everything. They fitted me with the collar 2 days later. Webb explained it tracked my location, that staying away from livestock was survival imperative. I understood none of his words, but all of his meaning. Beth was there for the release, still on crutches. Come back, she said. Anytime you want. The door's always open. I looked at her, at Grace standing beside her, hand on her growing belly, at Pastor Bill and Rob, unlikely allies born from tragedy. Then I turned toward the forest, toward freedom I'd dreamed about in that cage, ran 3 steps and stopped, looked back. Beth was crying, smiling through tears. I could run, could disappear into mountains and never see humans again, live wild and free and alone, the way wolves were meant to live, or I could stay close, choose pack over solitude, choose the warmth of belonging over the cold of independence, the forest called. But so did the cabin where someone had stitched my wounds and counted pills because I existed, where a woman learned to live because I needed her to, where Pack waited. I took one step back toward Beth, then another. Her face transformed. Midnight. I wouldn't live in the cabin. I wasn't that domesticated. But close. Close enough to hear if she called. Close enough to keep watch. Close enough to come back every week and let her know I chose this. I chose you. Because humans don't have a monopoly on love. Sometimes wolves figure it out too. 3 months later, on a spring morning that smelled like new grass and second chances, I lay outside Beth's cabin and listened to a baby cry for the first time. Grace had come home to give birth. Beth had been there to deliver her granddaughter when the hospital was too far and the weather turned bad. And I'd been there too, keeping watch, because that's what Pack does. They named her Hope. Through the window, I watched Beth hold the baby, watched Grace lean against her mother, watched 3 generations exist in one space without fear or anger or blame. Rob visited that afternoon, bringing supplies and apologies, slowly earning his way back into the community, one good deed at a time. Pastor Bill came for dinner, and they laughed actual laughter over stories, and shared grief transformed into shared healing. I didn't understand their words, but I understood their joy. And lying there in the grass, collar warm against my neck, I understood something else. I was still wild. My paws still knew mountain paths. My blood still sang for the hunt. But wild didn't mean alone anymore. It meant choosing who you run toward instead of what you run from. It meant pack. They asked me once, in those early days, why I stayed when I could run free forever. If I could speak human, I'd tell them I've been free. Free is lonely. I've been wild. Wild is cold. But here, I have something worth more than freedom. I have a pack, and that I learned from a woman who saved a wolf while trying to die is the wildest thing of all. Sometimes the hardest thing we ever do is let someone save us. Beth thought she was rescuing a wolf, but really, they rescued each other. How many of us carry guilt like stones in our pockets, waiting for the water to close over our heads? How many second chances have we missed because we couldn't forgive ourselves for the first failure? This story reminds us that it's never too late to choose hope over despair, to rebuild broken bridges, to discover that the family we need isn't always the family we were born with. Beth lost 6 years with her daughter because neither could say the simple words, "I'm sorry" and "I forgive you." 6 years of birthdays, holidays, ordinary Tuesdays that can never be reclaimed. But they found their way back. And in doing so, they found something else, that love doesn't have an expiration date, that mercy isn't weakness, and that sometimes God sends us help in the most unexpected forms. Even a black wolf with a cross-shaped scar. What relationship in your life needs mending before it's too late? Have you ever experienced an unexpected friendship or connection that changed everything? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.